Section 7.0, Security. The objectives in this section is we'd like to go over how you configure Pi SDK connections. We're going to like to explain how to manage the contents of our firewall table, create users, import Windows domain users into the Pi user table. We'll create groups, we'll describe the limitations of those groups, etc. Assign users to groups, configure point-by-point security, something called trust accounts for interfaces, and understand the use of the $sign in trusts, configure database security so that only certain people have access to certain database entries like points and archives. And then finally, be familiar with the Pi Security Best Practices white paper. We have a white paper out there. So let's start by just discussing security in general. You may see, as you work with Pi, either of these error messages. And of the two, the one I think you would probably be most likely to see is this one right here. We see this more than just about any other error message, and it's typically happens when somebody tries to configure an interface node for the first time. See, they have an interface that's running remotely, and it has to store data on a Pi server, but unfortunately it doesn't have write access. So we typically see that negative 10401 error, and just as quickly as we see it, we usually tell people, oh, you need to create a trust, because that's typically what people forget to do. So that's what we're talking about. This is security related. Basically, this whole chapter is all about security, and these are the two of the things that you'll see happen most frequently. We would like for Pi, of course, to have whatever permissions that you think are appropriate for all the users and all the applications that have access to Pi. So we want to make sure that those users and applications don't get these messages. So how do we go about doing this? What options do we have? Well, we create users and groups. So you can create Pi users and then associate those users with certain groups. And then those users actually become very important later on when we define trusts, because when you define a trust, you assign what Pi user the trusted application uses for its permissions. So basically, in order to understand trust, we need to understand users first. A trust is for allowing permissions for those things that will not have a user who is interactively entering a password and a username. And then also we have configuration control over the database security itself. This would be not answering the question who can build or who can edit tag B, for example, but answering the question who can edit tags at all, who can create new tags. So if we've got, for example, tag X and somebody would like to edit the data, well, you have control over that on a tag-by-tag basis, but also you have database level control. Who gets to even look at those security settings to make changes to that? So those are some of the options that we use for implementing security in Pi.